Good evening everyone, and welcome to my first official council meeting as Mayor. I think it's been 6 days since I've been elected as Mayor, so welcome everybody. Members of the public are advised the meeting will be live streamed and recorded, and the live stream and video recording will be made publicly available on YouTube and Council's website. Now do the acknowledgement of country. Nillumbik Shire Council respectfully acknowledges the Wurundjeri Wurrung people as the traditional owners of the country on which Nillumbik is located, and we value the significance of the Wurundjeri people's history as essential to the unique character of the Shire. We pay tribute to all First Nations people in Nillumbik, living in Nillumbik, give respect to elders past, present and future, and extend that respect to all First Nations people. We respect the enduring strength of the Wurundjeri Wurrung and acknowledge the ongoing impacts of past trauma and injustices from European invasion, massacres and genocide committed against First Nations people. We acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded. Wurundjeri Wurrung people hold a deep and ongoing connection to this place. We value the distinctive place of our First Nations people in both Nillumbik and Australians' identity, from their cultural heritage and care of the land and waterways to their ongoing contributions in many fields including academia, agriculture, art, economics, law, sport and politics. I will now pass to Councillor Perkins, who will do the Good Governance Pledge.
Thank you, Mayor Ayer. As councillors, we are mindful of our civic responsibilities and obligations. We pledge to take them seriously and to carry them out with diligence and integrity. We know the decisions we take will affect the people and the environment of Nillumbik now and into the future. We undertake, therefore, to make sound and principled decisions of lasting value in a spirit of fairness and for the good of all. We also pledge to serve the needs and well-being of the community and the environment in an open and honest manner to the best of our abilities.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. I'll now introduce to you Reverend Father Stephen Mancarius, and he will be speaking to us, but first I'll introduce him, so thank you, please come down. So tonight's prayer will be led by Reverend Father Stephen Mancarius, who along with Father Arsenius Salib serves the parish community of St Macarius Coptic Orthodox Church located at 615 to 623 Yanyin Road, Yarrambat. The church was first established on the 12th of December 2009 and initially conducted its services at various Hyde venues in the outer northern suburbs of Melbourne. After a significant collective effort and hard work, the church community was finally able to officially open its permanent church in Yarrambat on the 22nd of October 2016. St Macarius Church serves approximately 500 Nillumbik Shire parishioners, providing special spiritual and economic benefits through its diversity of free programs, services, activities and workshops. The church has a strong focus on mental health, family mediation, child and youth development, general well-being, counselling, mentoring and community engagement. A culturally rich and vibrant community, it delivers a wide range of services, activities and supports for local senior citizens, youth, family and children. Another highlight of the church's calendar is its twice-yearly church fete, featuring food, farm animals, games and various other fun activities. The positive effects of the church emphasis on community, giving and togetherness cannot be overstated. I think we've come to appreciate over the past 2 years just important how these things are. Very true. St Macarius is therefore to be highly commended for its work in the community, providing such critical support and guidance during a very difficult time. So thank you for all the work you do for our community. I'd now like to welcome Father Stephen to deliver tonight's prayer.
I would like to begin by extending deep and heartfelt gratitude to the Mayor and councillors of the Shire of Nuremberg for your very warm welcome and kind invitation to lead in prayer over your council meeting this evening. On this occasion, I would like to share with you a prayer titled, "Do It Anyway," by the simple saint of the slums of Calcutta, Mother Teresa. People are often unreasonable, irrational, and self-centered. Forgive them anyway. If you are kind, people may accuse you of selfish, ulterior motives. Be kind anyway. If you are successful, you will win some unfaithful friends and some genius enemies. Succeed anyway. If you are honest and sincere, people may deceive you. Be honest and sincere anyway. What you spend years creating, others could destroy overnight. Create anyway. What you spend, if you find certainty and happiness, some may be jealous. Be happy anyway. The good you today will often be forgotten. Do good anyway. Give the best you have, and it will never be enough. Give your best anyway. In the final analysis, it is between you and God. It was never between you and them anyway. Thank you.
Thank you, Father. I'll now move on to apologies. There being none, we will move to item 6, which is presentations. And I'll hand over to the CEO to do the first of the presentations.
Thank you, Mayor Ayer. It's my privilege tonight to acknowledge the work of Councillor Perkins during his term as Mayor for the year to November 24. Councillor Perkins' experience was of immense benefit over the past year in helping a new council navigate the first 12 months of a 4-year term at a time of continuing uncertainty around the COVID pandemic. At the time of being returned as Ellis Ward Councillor at the 2020 elections last year, Councillor Perkins brought over 10 years' experience, including a previous term as Mayor. Over the course of the past year, he guided Council through the adoption of its key long-term strategic documents, including the Council Plan and the Community Vision. His experience and insights have been greatly appreciated by Council officers and safe to say as evidenced in our new Mayor's inaugural address last week by his fellow councillors. Councillor Perkins has been and continues to be a great advocate for the local community. On behalf of councillors and officers, I would like to thank him for his work over the past year and present him with this token of appreciation, which captures some of the scope and breadth of the various highlights of his term as Mayor. Thank you very much, Councillor Perkins.
I'll just say a couple of words, if that's okay. Look, I firstly just want to acknowledge Council and the support that all councillors gave me for the previous 12 months. It was a challenging year through COVID. Many of the things that hopefully Francis will get a chance to do, the opening of infrastructure and new projects and opening events. Hopefully we'll get a chance to do that this year. I didn't get much of a chance to do too much of that, unfortunately, but one standout one for me was the opening of the Diamond Creek Regional Play Space, which was awarded as from a mob called the Parks and Leisure Australia awarded as the best play space in all of Tasmania and Victoria recently. And we went to the finals for the national award, but we got pipped at the post by a little park in Perth, I think it was. But, you know, thanks, councillors. Thanks especially to Fran. So Fran, as Deputy Mayor, really did heaps to support me and to support council, and it's great to see that Fran has been elevated to Mayor. There was many things that you know, I put on Fran to do and to help out with, and she hardly ever said no. She was very keen to help out wherever she could, so I really appreciate that. And also, just acknowledge the CEO, Carl. One of the benefits of being Mayor, and I did find this when I was last Mayor 9 years ago, was a close working relationship that you form with the CEO of the day. You have a much better appreciation of the challenges faced by staff, and you know, you're in constant contact with the CEO, and that's been a real benefit to me, and I appreciate the work that Carl has done on behalf of the organisation and for the organisation over that time as well, and he will, of course, into the future. The other one that really supported me to a huge extent was Lynn Gowdy, the PA to the Mayor and councillors. Lynn, she was literally working every day to support the Mayor, more so than often I was being Mayor. So all the correspondence, all the things that needed to be done, she kept a track of. So it would have been an impossible task without the support of Lynn. So I just have to acknowledge, or I'm very happy to acknowledge Lynn. That's probably about it for me. I just sort of, one thing I was very keen on as Mayor was making sure that all correspondence that came to me as Mayor got distributed to the council group without exception. And you know, I hope that we'll have a good 3 years ahead of us. Sort of one united council that often won't agree on community priorities, and we come from different places, but hopefully when we come together, we can reach consensus, even if we disagree, and move on. So I think the foundation's been set for a good council for the next 4 years, and you know, wish us all luck into the future. So thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Councillor Perkins. I'd now just like to also pay tribute to Councillor Frances Ayer, who is now the Mayor, sitting on my left. She was elected as a first-time councillor along with 4 of her colleagues at last year's election. She was then elected Deputy Mayor, setting in train, as she herself has said, a very steep learning curve, but one which she then proceeded to negotiate with aplomb. Councillor Ayer's first year on council has been characterised by a commitment to engaging with the community, listening to its views and taking this on board. This inclusiveness, along with a real determination to learn as much as she could in order to do the best job she could, all the while being courteous and professional, has also been evident in her dealings with the officers. Her dedication to community service, especially to helping those in our community who find themselves marginalised, has also been apparent from the outset and was characteristic of her term as Deputy Mayor. On behalf of councillors and officers, I would now like to present Councillor Ayer with a token of our appreciation for her work as Deputy Mayor over the past year, and wish her all the very best for her mayoral year. Thank you.
I just wanted to say a quick few words, actually, from my role as Deputy, and I just really wanted to reiterate how grateful I am to have worked so closely with Councillor Perkins, and I've gained valuable experience and knowledge through supporting you as Deputy Mayor, and I really appreciate that now because I feel so confident in being able to be Mayor now. So thank you very much, and thanks for all the hard work that you've done. And I'm sure I'm speaking on behalf of all of us to say thank you for your dedication. So thank you very much. So we'll now move on to the CFA Appreciation Award presentation. I've got some things to read, but then when I call you out, you'll be able to come up to this corner. I'm not sure if it's been mentioned, so thank you. So I'd like to warmly welcome here tonight representatives from a number of our brigades and groups, and they are all here, so thank you very much. We know with the arrival of the warmer weather, it's important to prepare for the possibilities of bushfire and have a plan for emergencies. Living in such a picturesque environment brings risk that our community is very aware of. We know that the arrival of summer is accompanied by the increased probability of bushfire. Council is committed to working with you, our emergency services personnel doing what you do best, protecting lives and property. Volunteers are the backbone of our community, and that is certainly the case with our exceptional CFA volunteers. As we enter another bushfire season, on behalf of Nillumbik Shire Council, I would like to acknowledge and thank you all for the selfless and important work that you do. It's also important to remember that the mitigation of fire risk is a critical component of fire season preparedness and requires a year-round commitment. I know this is something the CFA and all emergency service agencies prioritise in their preparations and via your many community education initiatives. Mitigation must be a responsibility shared by the entire community. Preparing for and responding to emergencies is a year-round activity. Council is committed to working with the CFA and our other partners to ensure that our fire and emergency management arrangements meet the needs of our community. On behalf of my fellow councillors and council staff, I'm delighted we are providing $49,000 in donations to assist our 16 brigades and 2 groups for their exceptional work. Tonight, we're here to wish all our emergency services first responders well as we head into summer. As you would all agree, we hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. I would now like to present you with your certificates. Thank you again. We have our deepest appreciation, or you have our deepest appreciation and support. So I now call Mark Gravel, Captain of District 14 Headquarters, Brigade East. Thank you so much. Steve Gormley, Secretary, St Andrews Fire Brigade.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, and there's a cheque on the back, so don't just leave it somewhere around randomly. Put it, yeah, it is, definitely. Andrew Buller, First Lieutenant, Lieutenant, Kangaroo, oh, sorry, I'm reading the wrong line, sorry, Wattle Glen Fire Brigade. Andrew's not here? Okay.
What happened to the check?
Yeah. Kate Lamble, First Lieutenant, Kangaroo Ground Fire Brigade. David Rumble, Captain, Plenty Fire Brigade. Benny Broom, Treasurer, Panton Hill Fire Brigade. Stephen Riley, Captain, Eltham Fire Brigade. Thanks, Stephen. Bury, Group Officer, Whittlesea Diamond Valley Fire Brigades Group. Robert Bury, Captain, Doreen Fire Brigade. Bury.
Dig a hole and bury me.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Do we have a photo of Jimmy?
At the end. Thank you. Glenn Clark, First Lieutenant, Hurstbridge Fire Brigade. Andrew Napoleon, Yarrambat Fire Brigade. And Warren Rees, Arthurs Creek Brigade. Oh, no, stay here, stay. Do you want to hand it over? Thank you so much. Thanks, Warren. We haven't missed anyone, have we? No? Great, thank you. We'll actually now have a photo with all of the CFA, and then we'll move on with business. Thank you.
Push the button. Mayor Ayer, councillors, staff, fellow firefighters and guests, I just wanted to pass on our thanks from the groups and brigades for the generous donations tonight. As mentioned before, we're 24/7, 365 ready for a whole range of incidents, and we very much appreciate the ongoing support of council for the work that we do. Rest assured, the funds will be wisely spent, and there are generally three areas that we spend funds on. They're things like personal protective equipment for firefighters, the important work of community education and education and engagement. Both of those are really important. And the third area is operational equipment, so things like thermal imaging cameras or pieces of equipment for appliances. So the money is very wisely used, and we very much appreciate your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you to all our CFA workers and volunteers. So thank you for coming tonight. Now move on to a condolence, Mark Vassallo. I was saddened to hear of the recent passing of our former waste management team leader, Mark Vassallo. In his passing, council officers lost a much-loved colleague and the Nillumbik community a great servant. Mark worked for the council for 17 years. Hired to drive a side loader in 2003 and soon after that moved into the team leader role. As team leader, Mark was the glue that kept the waste service in one piece and the grease that made the parts run smoothly. Mark started work every day before 5:30 a.m, making sure our waste drivers knew what they were doing for the day. Before many of us had woken up, he'd already solved the day's problems, making sure that all the bins that were out were going to be emptied. He wrangled drivers' absences, truck breakdowns, trucks sliding off unsealed roads in the wet, resident requests and complaints among numerous daily tasks. Mark was committed to doing the job to the best of his ability. He was an excellent supervisor, greatly respected by his staff and anyone who worked with him. His staff knew what was expected of them and knew they would hear about it if they were not doing what was expected. Mark's attention to detail was legendary and he set a high standard. He was meticulous. As far as Mark was concerned, there is no reason why he can't drive down a street after a waste truck has been through and see bins lined up neatly on the road reserve, all upright with their lids flipped. Mark had a great customer service approach, always patient and courteous, with a knack for moving people from angry to understanding. While his job could be relentless and at worst incredibly difficult, Mark was always ready to tell you how much he loved his job. He would say that some people go to work because they have to, but he was fortunate because he had a job he loved. In recognition of his dedication, Mark received the Rotary Pride of Workmanship Award in 2011. When he wasn't at home, he spent time with his family, rode his Harley-Davidson motorbike and worked on his impressive array of tattoos. Our thoughts are with his wife, 2 daughters and his new grandson, and on behalf of Council, I would like to convey our deepest condolences. Thank you. I'll now move on to item 7, confirmation of minutes. Can I please have someone move the motion?
Yes, Mayor, I'll do that.
Thank you, Councillor Penn.
Yes, I'd like to move the motion that the minutes of the council meeting held on Tuesday, 26 October 2021 be confirmed.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Would you like to speak to the motion?
No.
Councillor Perkins? No? Okay, great. I'll put the, any other councillors like to speak? No? I'll put the matter to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. I now move to item 8, disclosure of conflicts of interest. Do councillors have a conflict to disclose? No? I'll also note though, just in case, councillors should note that any conflict of interest should also be disclosed immediately before a relevant item. As there are no conflicts, I will move to item 9, which is petitions. As there are no positions, I'll now move to item 10, which is questions from the gallery. And we do not have any questions from the gallery tonight, so we'll move to item 11, which is the reports of advisory committees. Can I have a councillor move that motion, please?
Yes, you may. I'd be delighted to move that motion, Mayor Ayer.
Thank you so much, Councillor Payne.
Yes, I'd like to move the motion that the minutes of the advisory committee meetings reported be noted as per attachment 1.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Rantaran. Thank you. Would you like to speak to the motion? No. I'll put the... any other councillors wish to speak? Okay, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. We'll now move to the officers' reports. And the first one on the agenda is item number CM 132/21, which is the Council Plan Quarterly Performance Report for 2021 to 22, Quarter 1. Do I have someone to move the motion? Thank you, Councillor Perkins.
Thank you. I'll move that Council receives the Council Quarterly Performance Report in Attachment 1 for the first quarter of 2021-22.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Do I have a seconder for the motion?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Would you like to speak to that?
Yeah, thank you, Mary. During the last 12 months, the Council Plan 2021 to 2025 was developed. It had 23 actions that require quarterly reporting, and I'm happy to report that all 23 actions are currently on track. That council plan has 4 high-level strategic themes, they being community connection, place and space, sustainable and resilient, responsible and accountable. So there are 54 actions in total for our council plan in terms of the action plan. 23 are for quarterly reporting, and the remainder will be reported on at the end of the year in the final quarter. So just some of the highlights that are referenced in tonight's performance report is the Nillumbik Health and Wellbeing Plan 2021-25 was adopted by Council October 2021, and extensive community consultation going to achieve that. Following the establishment of the Youth Council earlier this year, we've endorsed the draft youth strategy. We endorsed the draft youth strategy 2022-26 in September. We've undertaken extensive community consultation for the municipal planning strategy, and that's work ongoing, but it's certainly on track. A community engagement process for the future of the former Plenty CFA site has been undertaken. We've got some very good feedback on the community's expectations for that site, and that there will be a decision on that site in due course. The draft climate action plan was presented to the September council meeting and endorsed for consultation through from October to November. We've started a community consultation process for the Wattle Glen Public Realm Framework. We've allocated the $5 million from the federal government for the Eltham Urban Congestion Fund project. Did I say the federal government? Is that where that came from? I'm pretty sure it was. The $5 million from the federal government, with thanks to them. That's gone through heaps of consultation, and that's only been improved through that consultation. Most of the actions in the pandemic recovery plan are underway and on track. The draft local law is out for consultation at the moment, and we've got a new general local law that's been drafted. It'll go out and it's on exhibition at the moment. Practical completion of the Diamond Valley Sports and Fitness Centre was achieved in September, and we're hoping that we'll actually get a certificate of occupancy for that in the next week or so, I understand. So yeah, basically all the those 23 actions are on track, and just like to congratulate Jeremy for putting the report together and the work of the officers to deliver on the council plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Would Councillor Duffy like to speak?
Thank you. The past 12 months have passed really quickly, and during this time I've witnessed council officers work diligently towards achieving the outcomes committed to in the council plan. The highlights for me, just 3 I want to touch on. The creation of the Youth Council and the voice these ambassadors are having in developing strategy and action. And I'm really delighted to be the appointed councillor to the Youth Council moving forward for the next 12 months, and look forward to working with them closely. Second highlight is the development of the Climate Action Plan and the targets that we're setting for the council and the community in that. And the third highlight is the completion of the $16.5 million redevelopment of the Diamond Valley Sports and Fitness Centre that Councillor Perkins was just talking about. That's come with help from the Victorian Government. It gives a new lease on life for this community asset, and I can't wait for the doors to open to the public so that we can all have a sneak peek, and for basketball, table tennis and various other sports and fitness classes to begin. I'd like to sincerely thank all the staff, the community groups and Aligned Leisure and the contracted builders for coming together to reach this point where we're about to get the certificate of occupancy just after a few more things are completed. And of particular importance with this project is the colourful public artwork that blankets the external walls that's been created by Indigenous artist Fiona Clark. I'd just like to invite the community to come up and have a look at the building on the exterior so that you can have a look at this artwork that's in formation. There'll be more information that will come out about it, but you know, it really is something wonderful to be able to weave the tapestry of painting and public art in the building that is going to be used by the community for sport. There's a lot of information about the symbolism of Fiona's art, and I'd just like to read out a little paragraph about that. With this artwork, Fiona has included the main circle, a meeting place, that is the Diamond Valley Sports and Fitness Centre, around which all branches of the community gather, families, friends, sporting clubs, to improve their health and boost overall community health. The vitality and movement in the artwork flows around the circle like the universe, and from the stars that same energy shoots out of all parts of the community. The line works within the image are all the lands that surround the Diamond Valley Sports and Fitness Centre and follow the familiar iconography of traditional owners celebrating First Nations and local community heritage and culture. So I think it's fabulous that at a community asset we've been able to include an Indigenous acknowledgement that celebrates culture and celebrates community, and this fitness centre is somewhere that people are busting to get back into. So again, congratulations to all of the community groups, the staff, the builders and Aligned Leisure for coming together to do that. And just lastly, I look forward to working with the community councillors and my council officers and my councillor colleagues to deliver meaningful outcomes for Nillumbik. And so the next report hopefully will be as good, and maybe we can have more things ticked off.
We're finished with time, so thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Did any other councillors wish to speak? No, so I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. Before I move to the next motion, I'd actually like to make an apology to Councillor Payne. I believe I called you Councillor Perkins earlier on. I didn't actually think I would do that, given that I've been called Councillor Egan before, so my apologies. I think it's because they both start with the same letter.
That's all right. I'll just sit on this and...
So here we go. Alrighty. I'll move on to the next item, which is item number 16121, which is the Quarterly Risk and Safety Report, September 2021. Do I have someone to move the motion?
Yes, you do, but you have to name me.
Councillor Payne, please.
Yes, I'd like to move the motion that Council 1 notes the summary of the Confidential Risk and Safety Report as attached in Attachment 1 for the quarter ending September 2021, and 2 resolves that the attached Risk and Safety Report as per Attachment 1 remains confidential in accordance with Section 3, 1A and F of the Local Government Act 2020.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for the motion?
I'm happy to do that.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Councillor Payne, would you like to speak to the motion?
I just want to thank Officers Jeremy Livingston and Craig Cummane for the work that they've done. This is the ongoing work in making sure that we meet our obligations in terms of our risk and safety, and good to know that we are meeting those obligations. So I'd just like to thank Council officers.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Councillor Duffy, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to mention something that's come out of the report and something that has been made known to me by community groups, and that's the vandalism that's occurred to damage the Eltham North synthetic soccer pitch, which was only returfed a few months ago, as you'll know, and also the theft of cricket equipment, which resulted from a break-in, or actually there've been a couple of break-ins, of the shipping container used by the North Eltham Wanderers Cricket Club. Incidents like this cause distress to the community groups who worked really hard to fundraise for their equipment. So whilst we're looking at risk and safety and reports, there is a real element to what is happening here, and I'd just like to take this opportunity to appeal to the community to report suspicious activity to the police. You know, help us use rate money wisely so that we don't have to use money to repair things that are being vandalised. It's really just a call for some common sense. That's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Would any other councillor like to speak? No? Thank you. All right, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll now move to item CM 162/21, Nillumbik Domestic Animal Management Plan 2021 to 25. And I believe Councillor Perkins would like to amend the motion.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll move that Council adopts the Domestic Animal Management Plan 21-25, 21-25 as shown in Attachment 1, but deletes the following activity from the plan to be conducted in Year 1, and that is to delete the line, complete a review of the existing Cat Curfew and associated Section 26 order in Council. Number 2, the Council requests officers correct errors of place names, off-leash areas and features in Appendix maps in Nillumbik. It's actually Appendix maps of off-leash areas in Nillumbik. So it's, if we just change that that wording to Appendix, it's called maps of off-leash areas in Nillumbik. Maps of off-leash areas. And just a colon, I think that's what it's called, after Appendix, you know, the 2 dots on top of each other. Full column. Yep, that's the one. And number 3, requests officers present a draft version of an updated DAMP to Council for endorsement immediately following the adoption of new local laws currently undergoing community consultation.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Do I have a seconder for the motion?
Yes, I'd like to second that.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Councillor Perkins, would you like to speak?
Yes, thanks, Mayor. Look, I'm broadly in support of the DAMP, and I think it's been very good work done by officers in general, and the community certainly had their say. The consultation that I was listening intently at the PCC meeting last, where there was a lot of concern around a proposed or a possibility of a 24-hour cat curfew coming in. It's not my first rodeo. This seems to come up, you know, routinely every time we endorse a DAMP. It's not something that is necessarily driven by community or council, I believe, but here it was again. I know as Mayor I was asked to sign a media release that really put this front and centre, and the whole media release was to try to encourage people to participate in the community consultation around the DAMP, and that it started off with the line, do you support a 24-hour cat curfew in Nillumbik? Well, I know I haven't in the past, I'm not likely to in the future, and I don't want to see council ratepayer funds expended on a pointless exercise, really. I don't think it's required. We currently can't effectively enforce the cat curfew that we've got, which I believe is from 7 o'clock at night till 6 in the morning. Of course, if state government bring in a 24-hour cat curfew, that will be done for us. But in the meantime, I think it's just a bit of a distraction to spend money, and I think it was $60,000. You know, it'd probably be a large portion of or $15,000 from the Pet Expo to spend on community consultation around a 24-hour cat curfew is only going to upset residents unnecessarily, and I don't believe that it will get the required support on council anyway. The arguments to and against, or for and against, are well known and well documented. And look, I just don't think it's something that we need to put the community through at this stage. The second part of the motion, there's a number of minor errors in the maps of the off-leash areas. So I'd just like those place names to be corrected. There's I know one was the Diamond Creek Labyrinth, which is in the map as the Diamond Creek Maze. Now the Omni, the group that got the Diamond Creek Labyrinth up and going would be outraged at the prospect of a council document that calls the labyrinth a maze, because they're two very, very different things. I wasn't aware of that before. Ken Rampling first introduced me to the concept of a labyrinth, but it's certainly not a maze. So, and there's a number of other issues in the maps, just in terms of making them clearer to properly delineate and show where the off-leash areas are, because while we have a local law around having dogs on leash on trails and footpaths, 3 metres off the trail, particularly in Diamond Creek Linear Reserve or Diamond Creek Reserve, the area is off leash, and that's been the situation for many years, and I don't think there's any intent to make those changes. So we just need to clarify those maps. The other issue there, the third dot point, is that we're undergoing a process to eventually adopt new local laws. We don't exactly know what that's going to look like, because it's currently out for consultation, and that has to be considered, but it will certainly have an impact upon the DAMP. Amenity local law and other local laws are referenced right throughout the DAMP, so as soon as we finalise that process, I'd like officers to present a report back to council that puts the DAMP back to us in a draft version to hopefully endorse with the changes as a result of the new local law process. But that's probably all the matters I've got. I noticed that we have got $15,000 to implement the DAMP, which we've never had in the past, and that's as a result of the Pet Expo being cancelled in the last 12 months. And I noticed that money is proposed to be used on the DAMP. So that's a good thing, and I just don't want that money really wasted in consultation around and review of cat curfews, which, in my view, the clear intent is to bring in to Nillumbik a 24-hour cat curfew. It's happened in other councils, hasn't been successfully implemented, and I think it's not something we need to do. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Councillor Egan, would you like to speak?
Yes, look, Councillor Perkins has covered off everything I really wanted to say. In terms of the 24-hour cat curfew, we barely have the funds at the moment to even cover off the 12-hour cat curfew that we do have. And there's a big difference between feral cats and domestic cats, and this is striking right at the heart of people's mental health, especially post-COVID. So it's another reason I wouldn't be supporting a 24-hour cat curfew. There also isn't a lot of evidence out there. There's certainly evidence of feral cats doing damage to wildlife, but not domestic. And again, for the reasons Councillor Perkins outlined from a funding point of view, and the money that this costs, $60,000, could be far better spent on other issues on the DAMP. So I'm totally in support, and that's about all I had to say. And totally agree with the revamp and the rewording of the local law review once that's finalised, because there's a lot of things that are in both, and that needs to all be sorted out in that run too. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Ramcharan.
Thank you, Mayor. Just foreshadowing that if this motion doesn't get up, I will move a separate motion, which would be exactly the same, except restoring point 1 to its original form and retaining points 2 and 3, which I think are good additions. Look, I think the DAMP is a really good plan, and I thank you to officers for working so collaboratively with council and the community to put it together. The point with the cat curfew, the plan doesn't even mention a 24-hour cat curfew. All it says is that we will review the existing curfew. Now, that doesn't mean bringing in a 24-hour curfew. It means reviewing the rules that we've currently got. Do they work well? How well are we enforcing them? What can we change in the way we're doing them? Yes, it will consider a 24-hour curfew, but at the end of the day, that's not the only thing that point is about. And I would argue that action actually could cover off other important considerations as well. So we'd be killing the investigation if we remove it. We'd also be killing the community consultation that could come out of that. And if you look at the survey results, 65% of people who were surveyed on the damp supported a 24-hour cat curfew. So in my mind, I think that gives us a very strong reason, if we're listening to the community, to review those regulations. Even if it's something that we don't end up changing, I think we owe it to those people to review it. This suggestion did come from officers, and it's a myth to say that it would cost us extra money to enforce. In fact, it's there as a tool for officers, one of the many tools in their toolboxes. So if people are having issues with cats wandering at large, causing problems, then officers actually have a rule that they're able to use to take enforcement action and respond to community concerns. That's why they want to review those controls. It is not it's not about spending extra money and putting more burden on them. In fact, it's about reviewing the tools they've got and creating tools to make their jobs easier. I really do have to represent my ward on this one. Pretty much everybody I've spoken to when I've been out and about in Sugarloaf Ward has supported a 24-hour cat curfew, or at least the ones who I've spoken to. It's been directly raised with me by a number of people in my ward. And I know, and one thing I heard strongly during the election is that people want wildlife protected. We move here for our wildlife. Seeing wildlife around is really positive for people's mental health, and seeing it killed is really negative. So I think, you know, if in the Greenwedge Shire, if we can't take this step to support our wildlife, then what hope do we have? There are reports out there about the harm that's done by domestic cats. There is evidence, and it's shown that a 24-hour cat curfew can make a difference. I have 2 cats, Mason and Misty. I love them both very much. They're indoor cats. We walk one of them on a leash so he can't hurt the wildlife. The one time he got off the leash, he chased a blue-tongue lizard that had been living in our garden for years, and we haven't seen that lizard since, sadly. So, I'm out of time. I'd better wrap up there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ramcharan. Would any other councillors like to speak? Councillor Duffy, thank you.
Thank you. There's a lot here. I think the labyrinth is amazing, rather than amaze. Just to follow on, the plan, the domestic animal plan, this plan is to help humans and animals live harmoniously through responsible pet ownership. So, you know, I'd like to say thank you to Rosa, to Heath, Jonathan and Carolyn for the work that they've done in putting this together. Through the community consultation, the big thing that jumped out to me was that we heard that dog poo and the dumping of dog poo bags on roads, footpaths, reserves, trails and sporting ovals is more than a nuisance. It's unsightly, it's unhygienic and it's environmentally damaging. It's also in contravention to our local law, Section 23, which is regarding the collection and disposal of dog excrement, which I'm not going to go into detail about that. People can look that up. But essentially, this is about common sense. You know, hundreds of people have complained directly to me about this, and after picking up the equivalent of many shopping bags of other people's dog poo, I'm really glad to see, we don't actually have a dog, but I do love dogs. I just don't like picking up other people's dog poo. I'm really glad to see the activity measures on page 27 in the plan to help minimise this problem, investigating the installation of poo bags and devices, collaborating with other councils on alternative options, increased monitoring and patrolling of hotspots by our rangers, and the issuing of infringements to offending dog owners. I think that's a positive step. You know, I'd like us to work with offering solutions instead of just hitting people with a big stick. And so this is kind of a combination of that. It's about education and providing the tools. But in addition, one thing that I'd like to see is the inclusion of a bin audit along the hotspots like our shared trails to ensure that we have sufficient places for people to do the right thing, to put their doggy do in the bin. There's nothing more frustrating than walking past dog bags that are on the cement. So people kind of go part of the way to do the right thing, but not the rest. Whilst the domestic animal management plan does not include any maps of off-leash areas in Eltham North at the moment, we know that the Eltham North Dog Park is being constructed, and people will see that as they drive past that area at Danzy's paddock just near the Eltham Men's Shed, and that's due to be completed in December. So once that's completed, there'll be a reference to how we look at a little problem, because I'd like to acknowledge that Council's local laws, as stated here in the DAMP, state that dogs and cats are not permitted, whether restrained or otherwise, within 5 metres of any children's playground or public barbecue. So, you know, I've mentioned to officers, and I'd like them to report back to us at the right time, not today, but on how Council can find common ground with the community when it's anticipated that people will walk their dogs through the Eltham North Adventure Playground to access the Eltham North Dog Park, so that the community are not in breach of the law. As a key theme of the submissions as well...
Councillor Duffy,
Yep. I'm
you've
over time. That's
over
okay.
time. Apologies for that. Thank you. All right. Would any other councillor like to speak? Thank you, Councillor Payne.
Just briefly to say that it does make sense, I think, that a 24-hour cat curfew would happen in a shire like Nillumbik. We're so close to the Green Wedge, and we're the Green Wedge Shire. We want to protect our animals and we want to protect our wildlife, and if one is basically hunting the other, we have to be responsible and see what we can do to minimise the damage. So I think that's the reason. It comes from a place of protection. The only thing I think is our ability to enforce this is virtually impossible. So I understand where the 24-hour curfew comes from, but I think it's a very, very almost impossible thing to enforce. So I commend the officers for putting the DAMP together, and while I can't necessarily support the 24-hour curfew, I think it does come from a good place. Just wanted to say that.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Would any other councillor like to speak? No? Thank you. I'll put the...
Right of reply?
would you like right of reply, Councillor Perkins?
I would. Thank you. Look, just in response to some of the comments from Councillor Emcher, and while you know, I respect his position, also respectfully disagree. He believes that you know, having that line in there, completed council review of the existing cat curfew and associated section 26 order in council doesn't mean work towards bringing in a 24-hour cat curfew. My view is that that's exactly what's intended, and that is what will happen. I don't see any sense in council getting officers to do work and engage with community on something that council doesn't support at the end of the day. It just causes a heap of frustration for officers and community and councillors, I believe. So I think it's clear that the notion of a 24-hour cat curfew is not supported by council for a number of various reasons, and that's why I believe it is a good initiative at this stage to strike that line out. Will it kill the investigation community consultation on this matter? Yep, absolutely. You know, Councillor Amtran did admit, and you know, it's my firm belief that council this wasn't raised by a councillor. You know, 24-hour cat curfew was a suggestion from the officers put there in Councillor Amtran's view to make their job easier. You know, that's not what I'm about necessarily. I'm about improving the lives of our ratepayers, and certainly those people that have cats. Many of them have approached me and are quite distressed at the notion that their animals will be locked up in lockdown forever if this work proceeds. So Sugarloaf Ward residents might support a 24-hour cat curfew, but I certainly know that majority of Ellis Ward residents do not. They do not now. They have not in the past, and I don't think they're likely to in the future. So, you know, hopefully with the support of council, we can put this one to bed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. I will now put the matter to the vote. All those in favour of the motion? Thank you. The motion's carried. Oh, sorry. All those against?
Can I call a division?
Yes, you can. So all those in favour? Councillor Perkins, Councillor Payne, Councillor Duffy, Councillor Egan, Councillor Stockman and myself, Councillor Ayer. And all those against? Councillor Ramcharan. Thank you. Motion carried. I'll now move to the next item on the agenda, which is CM 163/21, Land Management Incentive Program Guidelines Review. Can I have someone to put forward the motion? Thank you, Councillor Ramcharan.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move that Council endorses the revised Land Management Incentive Program Guidelines 2021 in Attachment 1, and 2, notes that the revised Land Management Incentive Program Guidelines will come into effect on the 1st of December 2021.
Happy to second the motion, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Egan and Councillor Ramcharan. Would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you. Just briefly to say that this is a fantastic program. It's sort of evolved over time into what it is today, and it really provides an incentive for landowners to do some really positive things on their land. The list is enormous of the things that you can do with this program. It's got a decent amount of funding. I'd always like programs like this to have more, but there is a limited bucket to draw from. But all of that money is put to good use. It's the sort of money where you could take $40,000 of council's budget and use it on one small plot of land, and get a small benefit from that, or you could hand that $40,000 out to many landowners and get hundreds of times the benefit. I feel like that money goes much further when you hand it out in grants rather than trying to spend it as a council. So the program really is worth doing. And thank you to officers for updating the guidelines, keeping them relevant and contemporary. We've got some new lines in there, including lines about soil carbon sequestration into the soil, and improving soil health on rural properties in order to better sequester carbon, and also make sure that agriculture remains viable. So the program has a wide number of benefits in our shire, and I'm happy to support the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Ramcharan. Councillor Egan, would you like to speak?
Thank you. Yes, I totally support the program too, but unlike Councillor Ramcharan, I think it is way underfunded. Some of the issues he was talking about in the previous item regarding the cat curfew and the damage that cats do to wildlife could be much better covered off in this particular item. Single private landowners can have up to $2,000 each, but a community group can have $10,000. So that's only 6 grants if you use them all together. There's some fantastic things in here, but it is so out of the realm of a lot of people because of the eligibility criteria. Deer management for a start, I mean $2,000 goes absolutely nowhere. The one thing I'd love to see a lot more of is cultural burning. But again, the rabbit and fox management and those sorts of things, and it's got to be 50-50 with a private landowner. It sort of needs to be quadrupled at a minimum, this budget. So yes, I think it's fantastic, but only just really tickles the guide, the outlines of what we actually need to do here. We'd do a lot more if we had some more funding. $50,000 spent on consultation would be far better added to this so that we can actually get some really good outcomes out of it. But I support it totally, and thanks for the staff for all the work they do on this. But again, it just needs to be expanded. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Would any other councillor like to speak? Thank you, Councillor Duffy.
Thank you. I'd just like to concur with Councillor Egan. My turn to make a mistake with the names. $60,000 is great, but it doesn't go a long way when it could be divided up in just 6 grants of $10,000. Even a grant of $2,000 won't go a long way, depending on what the item is that the landholder is trying to address. But I'd like to just appeal to people in the urban areas as well, that there are opportunities for people within the urban areas of our shire to apply for these grants. It's not just something that is for the people in the rural parts of town. or rural parts of the Shire, because we do have blackberry infestations and things like that in properties that are along our urban waterways and in the lands that are near that. So please, I suppose I'm just encouraging everybody to have a look at all of the grants, because there could be something in it as a way for you to save some money and to tackle a problem that is a problem for you, but is also something that council's wanting to work with you on. So anyone that wants to reach out to me, I'm happy to talk to you about what those grants are. But just getting back to this land management incentive scheme, very glad that council does this, and I'm really excited that cultural burns are part of the program as one of the opportunities for people to get funding on for that activity.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Would anyone else like to speak? No? Okay, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you. I now move to item 164/21, Nillumbik Placemakers Framework 2021. I believe Councillor Payne would like to move the motion.
Yes, indeed. I'd like to move the motion that council adopts the Nillumbik Placemaking Framework 2021 as per Attachment 1.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Councillor Stockman, would you like to second?
Yes, Mayor Ayer, I'll second the motion, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stockman. Councillor Payne, would you like to speak?
Just to briefly thank the officers Corinne Nichols and Nicole Johnson for bringing the placemaking framework together, getting the team together that produced that report. I think it's terrific. I love the idea that there are three basic areas that council does work to build places, that it facilitates, works together, and gets to the point where the community says, we've got this, we don't need you, we can do this ourselves. And I think most of us understand that there are places that work and get triggered in any community, and it's nice to know that it doesn't happen just by accident, that there's a framework and a planning and a lot of thought that goes into this sort of stuff. So I very much look forward to seeing the fruits of this report and this concept. We value what we make and what we own, and it's great to have so many volunteers that want to make this place work better. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Councillor Stockman, would you like to speak? Would any other councillor like to speak to the motion? Yes, Councillor Duffy.
Thank you. I agree with Councillor Payne. We do value what we own, and in terms of having a project like this, Nillumbik Placemaking as a framework, our community value the things that they own and have ownership of. So it's great that we have an opportunity for people to be able to get some funding and to get some mentoring in as to how to get a project off the ground. I think the things that are really important to me is that with these projects, the five key principles are that there's a strategic vision, it's engaging, it's creative, it's inclusive, and it's fun. So I'd just like to encourage people to have a think about how would you like Nillumbik to look. Come up with some ideas. Work with your councillor to see whether that's something that they can help support you on, because some of the ideas that you have could be some of the ideas that council has, and there are ways that we can work together to fast track things. And I'd just like to commend the great work by the Eltham Rotary Club. At the moment, they're kind of doing placemaking as a sort. They've worked with the community to plant 7,000 Indigenous plants. Then you can also look at, there's a group of dedicated community members who are looking at the gateway of Eltham, and Councillor Payne put a motion forward about that not so long ago. So there are ways that the community can get involved in shaping the way our place is for now and the way that it will look in the future, so that it's not just council determining this. So I'm really excited about the opportunities that lie ahead.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Would any other councillors like to speak? No. As chair, I won't speak a lot, but I do need to read a quote that's actually in the framework, and it says that everyone has the right to live in a great place. More importantly, everyone has the right to contribute to making the place where they already live great. And this quote is by Fred Kent, and it's listed in the framework. And this quote just resonated with me, as I'm sure it will with many of our communities. So I just wanted to point that out to say that that's the crux of the framework for me. Thank you. So we'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Thank you. Carried unanimously. We now move to item CM 166/21, the amendment. I missed one, did I? Oh, my apologies. Okay, start that again. So we are now looking at item CM 165/21, which is the Audit and Risk Committee meeting, November 2021. Yes, thank you, Councillor Perkins.
Thanks, Mayor. I'll move that Council notes the minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee meeting held on the 10th of November 2021 as per attachment 1.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins.
Happy to second that.
Thank you, Councillor Payne. Would you like to speak to?
Yeah, just briefly, I had the pleasure in the last 12 months as Mayor of being appointed to the Audit and Risk Committee. It's the first time I've ever been on the Audit and Risk Committee, and I thought it was a fantastic committee. Certainly, congratulations to Vince Lombardi, our Chief Financial Officer, and Malika, the Finance Manager, who would do a lot of work in putting those agendas together for the Audit and Risk Committee. It was a real eye-opener, the first committee meeting I went to. Certainly as Mayor, I've encouraged as many councillors as possible to attend the Audit and Risk Committee, and although I won't be on the committee anymore, I still hope to be able to attend on occasion as an observer. Just to call out to the independent members of the committee, John Watson, the chair, and Greg Ribber Hollyman and Chris Eddy, they certainly bring enormous experience and a wealth of knowledge and really, really good feedback to officers and councillors on matters in that agenda. So the minutes are there, and the items considered by the Audit and Risk Committee were annual procurement report, council and staff gift registers, fraud action plan 2021 to 23, and the update of 2021, emergency management, internal audit report, and complaints handling policy and report. So on that committee now will be the Mayor and the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Ayer and Councillor Ramtran, and any other councillor as an observer. So, but yeah, just again, great committee and really good independent members and other people on that committee. So thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Councillor Payne, did you
Nothing
speak?
from me.
No, thank you. Okay, any other councillors like to speak? No, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Now I'll start again with this one. Okay, so we've got CM 166/21, amendment C1310, regulating earthworks in the Green Wedge. Councillor Ramtran.
Yes, I'd like to move that Council 1 notes the recommendation of the Planning Panel that Amendment C1310 to the Nillumbik Planning Scheme be adopted as exhibited. 2. Adopt Amendment C1310 to the Nillumbik Planning Scheme as exhibited and then submits it to the Minister for Planning for approval and gazettal. And 3. Notifies submitters to the amendment of Council's resolution on the 30th of November 2021 regarding Amendment C1310 and updates Participate Nillumbik accordingly.
Thank you, Councillor Ramtran.
Happy to second the motion, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Councillor Ramtran.
Yes, look, I think this is a really great step forward for our Shire and something we can all be really proud of. It's yet another example of giving officers the tools they need to keep Nillumbik a place that we love. We all moved here because we love what we have here. We love our leafy urban areas and we love our bushy green wedge areas. We've seen in recent years some horrible damage done through illegal earthworks, and by making this planning scheme amendment now, we're able to clarify exactly what is and isn't allowed in Nillumbik, so that officers have the tools to stop these earthworks and nip them in the bud, rather than spending months and months at VCAT trying to do that. And we probably will have to go to VCAT anyway, but at least this way we have that clarity and officers have the tools that they need. So thank you to officers for all the work that they've put into making this happen. Thank you to the community for supporting it. I'm aware of at least one instance in my ward where there is now more alleged dumping happening, which is, as far as I'm aware, with the enforcement team, and I'll be interested to see where that goes. So what happened in previous years is not an isolated issue. It will continue unless we can take a hard line on it, and that's what we're doing. So I'm happy to support the amendment and look forward to having it in our planning scheme so that we have those added protections for our precious green wedge.
Thank you, Councillor Ramcharan. Councillor Egan, would you like to speak?
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Ramcharan's covered off most of it. As Councillor Perkins knows only too well, this was started back in 2016, unbeknownst to myself as a newbie councillor, and it's been just a battle with the team back in that term and this one. But we're coming to the pointy end of all of this, so it's really quite exciting that this is going to be finally, presumably, gazetted by the Minister and put into effect. So it will give the staff in Rose's team some tools to be able to basically nip all of this stuff in the bud, you know, especially with those legitimate people who were doing it for an economic reason. I'm not talking about the landowners, I'm talking about some of the suppliers that do it. They'll steer clear of Nillumbik, which is what we want. We're the second council to adopt an amendment like this, and I can see perhaps now a few more coming, and the state might take this one on because there needs to be something done. So I'm more than happy to support this. As I said, it's been a long, long battle, and I'm sure the rest of the councillors will join in me in making this a unanimous decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Would anyone else like to speak? No? I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. I'll now move to item CM 167/21, Recreation and Leisure Grants.
I'll move that.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy.
Let's turn that on. I'd like to move that Council endorses and requests officers to make a submission to round 2 of the country football and netball program for the Ben Friley Oval lighting upgrade with a council contribution of up to $150,000. That Council endorses and requests officers to make the following submissions to the Local Sports Infrastructure Fund, which is administered by Sports Recreation Victoria. Firstly, the Eltham North Synthetic Pitch lighting upgrade, which will have no council contribution. Secondly, the Eltham Skate Park lighting with a council contribution of up to $120,000. And thirdly, the Bridge Street Oval, a full surface reconstruction with a council contribution of up to $320,000.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy.
Happy to second the motion. It seems to me my role tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Councillor Duffy, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you. In the year that I've been in council, I've noticed the work that the council officers do in helping to make these projects shovel ready, working with our sports groups to ensure that there are projects on the go when there are opportunities for funding like this that comes up. There's suitability criteria and a number of elements that are assessed. But what I'd really like to acknowledge in this situation is the Eltham North Redbacks Football Club for their contribution. It's $100,000 to my knowledge that they're contributing to the upgrading of the lighting of the Eltham North Synthetic Pitch. Thank you to President Ivan Della Costa and Treasurer Gabby Montanese for committing these funds through your new management plan with Council as to how a hire agreement that we have between Council and the club for using the facilities. Redbacks have been part of our community for 54 years in the soccer world, and the club is going from strength to strength. Grant funding for sport and recreation activities is like finding the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow for our rec and leisure officers who work with the community groups to progress ideas into reality. Last weekend, I had the pleasure of joining in with the members of the Greensborough Hockey Club and the Rotary Club of Eltham as 350 plants were planted around the new club pavilion. The borough's new clubhouse is a far cry from their old one, which included a tuck shop which was run out of an old shipping container that leaked. Thank you, Greg Purser, for your leadership at Greensborough Hockey Club. Thank you to Sally Squires and Alan Field and Eltham Rotary, who've now helped plant the 7,000 Indigenous plants around our shire that I mentioned before. Sports clubs and community clubs can come together with recreation and leisure. On Saturday afternoon, I also joined with members from North Eltham Wanderers Cricket Club as they celebrated with past players their 40th anniversary. I had the privilege of listening to Stuart Ninnis, co-founder of the club back in 1981, as he shared the history of the club. At the time, they played out of the old green shed that's still there at the Adventure Playground. Since then, the Eltham North Top Cricket Oval has been created, and last year the new Wanderers Cricket Club Pavilion was opened. I saw firsthand how these new facilities provide an anchor, a home base of pride. Teams that were playing away that day wandered back to the clubhouse to give their match reports and celebrate with the club's past and its future. It was a special moment when President Vaughan Greenhill called on Brian Steig, who was the immediate past president, and he's done that term for 23 years as a volunteer, when he was presenting the 2020-2021 Barclay Shield to Jake Lambert, the captain, for their premiership victory this year. So I'd like to acknowledge that all of our sporting clubs, their presidents, executive members and volunteers for the dedicated work they do to connect community, to build healthy relationships across ages and genders, and for their advocacy for improvements to facilities to build our community. Facility improvements happen essentially because of the benefit your work does for your members and for the community at large. Council is happy to be a facilitator and grateful for funding assistance when it's available from the state and federal government to complement the contributions made by clubs directly and from residents through our rates.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Councillor Egan?
Thank you. Yes, Councillor Duffy's covered off the Eltham, I suppose, grant applications. I'd just like to speak about the one for Ben Friley, and this is round 2 of the 21-22 country football netball program. So I'm really excited and hope that we get this one. It is shovel ready, and this is also includes a council contribution of 150k from council, which is great. But considering sort of that neck of the woods has been the poor cousin of a lot of the Diamond Creek and Eltham, it's really exciting to see some money spent on that little oval and the other oval. So I'd like to thank Heath and his team for all the work that they've done there, and also the continuing work that they're doing on the upgrades to the cricket and footy pavilion there, which is really coming along, and hopefully that'll be opened in February. So I'm hoping we'll be successful, and like we were in the first round of the application, which went to the Coventry Oval Sports Ground lighting. So that's about all. The whole project for Ben Friley is 300k, and as I said, 120 is coming from council, and hopefully this grant will be covered off with that. But we do have to wait a while, May or June, so 6 or 7 months away before we get a result. The other good thing about this is that the lighting upgrade proposes LED lights, which are much more environmentally friendly and 80% more efficient than normal lighting, and they use less energy. So that's another good thing in reducing our greenhouse gas emissions. So totally supportive of this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Would any other councillors like to speak? No? Before I put the motion to the vote, I'm just going to say I wish us well with our 4 grant applications and hope we're successful. I'll now put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. I now move to item CM 168/21, informal meetings of councillors' records, 30th of November 21.
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to move the motion that Council, in accordance with item 19 of Council's governance rule, meeting procedure, receives informal meetings of Council's records, attachment 1, for the meetings held.
Thank you, Councillor Stockman. Do I have a seconder? Thanks, Councillor Perkins. Councillor Stockman, would you like to speak?
Yes, I'd just like to say that the report directly supports the achievement of Council Plan 21-25 strategy. We maintain good governance and transparency, clearly defining and communicating the role of councillors and council.
Thank you, Councillor Stockman. Councillor Perkins, would you like to speak? Any other councillors wish to speak? No, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. I'll now move on to item CM 169/21, Melbourne Water Land Divestment, Committee of Management. Councillor Ramtran.
Yes, I'd like to move that Council 1 agrees in principle to becoming the Committee of Management for the land identified in Map 1, Attachment 1, to facilitate assessment by DELP through the Strategic Crown Land Assessment process, noting this agreement is contingent on confirmation by Melbourne Water that no undersized lots less than 8 hectares are proposed by Melbourne Water in the final proposed lot configuration in this area of 40 Simpsons Road, Christmas Hills, for private sale as part of the future divestment of its land. 2. Requests the current parking and effluent areas supporting the Christmas Hills Hall in Attachment 2 be included in the land that Council is seeking to become the Committee of Management for, and include that land in the area put forward to DELP for consideration through the Strategic Crown Land Assessment process, or identify alternative arrangements with respect to this additional area for ongoing management and maintenance of the Christmas Hills Hall. And 3, requests the Chief Executive Officer provide a letter of support addressing points 1 and 2, and identify in such a letter Council's preference for rezoning of the land to Public Use Zone Schedule 6 to reflect the future use of the area for local government use. 4. Formally resolves to provide their support in becoming the Committee of Management for the Crown land parcels outlined below, Rob Roy Hill Climb, upon DELP consideration and approval, and right to DELP formally advising of its resolution. Crown Allotment 46B at 10 Rob Roy Street, Smiths Gully. Crown Allotment 47B at 375 Clintons Road, Smiths Gully. And point 5, requests the Chief Executive Officer provide a letter of support in becoming the Committee of Management for the land identified in point 4 above and send to DELP.
That was a mouthful. Thank you, Councillor Ramtran. Seconder for the motion. Thank you, Councillor Perkins. So, Councillor Ramtran, would you like to speak?
Yes, look, I'm really, really pleased for us to be putting up this motion tonight. It's a fantastic outcome for the Christmas Hills community. We've already been through the process with Rob Roy and made sure originally that Council would become the Committee of Management for their land, which means that they can continue doing what they do. And they really are a fantastic club. Councillor Egan and I had the pleasure of visiting them a couple of weeks ago. They took us up there climbing their sports cars, which was certainly an experience. We didn't race up, which would have been fun. It sounds fun jumping over the top of that hill in the cars. We didn't get to do that, but they really are a fantastic club, and I'm glad that we're supporting them. The other thing that this motion does, which is new, is that we're going to be hopefully taking on management of the land surrounding the Christmas Hills Hall and tennis courts. The tennis courts were built using bushfire relief funding after the Black Saturday bushfires, so they really are an important part of the community. Christmas Hills did have its own tennis court and park before, many years ago, but that was all flooded to create the Sugarloaf Reservoir. So the tennis courts that they have now are crucial to that community, and I'm really pleased to see us doing what we need to do to protect that so that it can continue to be used by the Christmas Hills community. It's managed by a Committee of Management in Christmas Hills. They operate as a not-for-profit. All the money that they collect from people using the tennis courts is put back into the land to maintain the tennis courts and the hall and the surrounding land. So I'm really pleased to be supporting them. The other thing that I don't think we bargained for right from the start. We were only asking for the little tiny bit of land around the hall to support us, to support the community to keep their tennis courts. Well, we've been told that's too small and we have to ask for more. So we may well get more than we bargained for and get a nice big plot of land to the north and south of that as well, which we'll have to figure out what we want to do with that. But that's more public land in the Shire, which is always a positive thing. I don't think we should ever say no to more land. So we could have a community reserve or any range of activities there, depending on what we can best do with the terrain and the environment that exists there. There's also the old Christmas Hills Post Office, which has heritage value, which is on now. If this gets through, and if DELP allows this, well, then it'll be on council land, which will be a really positive step forwards as well. So this is a great community outcome. I'm sure the Christmas Hills community will be very pleased if this motion gets up, and yeah, really hoping that we can take management of that land and get a really good community outcome, as well as a good planning outcome in ensuring that we're not creating undersized lots in the Royal Conservation Zone. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ramcharan. And Councillor Perkins?
Yeah, I'd just like to agree with Councillor Ramcharan and congratulate him on successful advocacy for this outcome. Certainly Ben has worked hard to walk councillors through this whole process, and look, it's a very, very good outcome. And Ben's done a lot of, or Councillor Ramcharan's done a lot of work with the officers, Rosa and the team. So look, I'm very happy that it's ended up here. Just one thing that Councillor Ramcharan said was, I think he said something like never say no to more public land. Certainly at times we do need to say no. There are reasons sometimes that other land managers or owners like to divest land. Some of it's appropriate for council to take on ownership and management of. There are many circumstances where it's not appropriate for council to take on those lands, and sometimes it's a cost shifting exercise. If another government say have land that they're having trouble manage, one of their answers might be to perhaps put out to the community that council should lease that land off them and therefore resolve them or absolve them from their responsibilities of managing that land. So we do have to be careful, but this is not such a case. It's going to cost council money in terms of maintaining these parcels of land, but I do believe it is money well spent, and it's a small positive outcome that we've got out of the divestment of the land by Melbourne Water. So it's a great outcome, and congratulations again, Councillor Ramcharan.
Thanks, Councillor Perkins. Councillor Egan?
Thank you, Mayor Ayer. Have to get used to that. Yeah, totally agree with what Councillor Perkins just said, as well as what Councillor Ramcharan said before. It's a great outcome on both those issues. I know the Rob Roy Hillcombe guys will be very, very relieved that they're now under council's sort of auspices rather than DELP and Melbourne Water. They will be very relieved. And if any of the councillors or staff haven't been up there, they keep it just looking absolutely stunning. So once they finish the works with the grant that they received with the new turning circle and the other things they're doing up there, you'll have to go up and have a look, because it's quite an outstanding hidden gem, I suppose, in Nillumbik, and one that we need to look after, just like the land in Christmas Hills. The one thing I am concerned about, and I don't know what Councillor Perkins' opinion is of this, but the land that we're getting, the bigger bit, I'd really like to see that not planted, because it's the one small fire break that goes around the hall and the tennis courts, and we need to keep that clear, because most of the other fire breaks have been all re-vegged and planted out, and it's the one, it's quite a cleared piece of pasture, so it'd be really good to even put that over to native grasses or something along those lines and make it open space for the community rather than planting it out, because there's enough vegetation there that's already a risk. But that area around the hall and the post office and the tennis courts needs to be kept clear, so I'd be really keen to see that happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Egan. Would anyone else like to speak? No. Okay, I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. I'll now move to item 13, notices of motion, and we do have one. I will hand that over to Councillor Perkins.
Thanks, Councillor. I might just read it out. The motion is that council requests officers to to work with the land holder, VicTrack, and various responsible agencies such as Melbourne Water and Metro Trains to find solutions to mitigate and manage the risks on the land alongside the Hurstbridge rail line in Diamond Creek, near the Diamond Creek Linear Reserve, Diamond Creek, near the Diamond Creek Linear Reserve. B, commence consultation with the community for BMX and off-roading opportunities in the area near the Diamond Creek Trail on Allendale Road. C, commence investigation into BMX and off-road biking opportunities across the Shire and provide progress updates to council throughout 2022. And 2, officers that council seeks funding from the relevant state agencies and advocates to all levels of government to identify funding opportunities to develop BMX and off-road biking locations in the Shire.
Thank you, Councillor Perkins. Before I ask for a seconder, I'm just actually going to read the title out because I think it's really important. It's NOM 007/21. It's Advocacy for Suitable BMX and Off-Road Biking Locations in the Shire. So thank you for reading that out, Councillor Perkins.
I'm happy to second that, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. So Councillor Perkins, would you like to speak?
Certainly, thank you, Mayor. So BMX has always been around in Nillumbik and more broadly throughout Victoria. Indeed, when I grew up in Apollo Parkways, there was a BMX track now where the Diamond Valley Library now stands. And I remember of weekends, routinely there'd be races and competitions. I was never involved in the races or competitions, but certainly me and my friends would use that BMX track all the time on every other day of the week. It was a great facility. BMX is certainly back in full force now. The issue of BMX tracks being built illegally on council land has been a long issue for a long time, and certainly there was a issue where there were some BMX jumps removed in Eltham North before the start of this council term and after the completion of the last. The community was quite upset about that. Certainly what that did put on the agenda for this council was to include an action in the current council plan, the 4-year council plan, the work that this council will do over the next 5 years to get up a regional BMX facility. The land that this motion speaks to, and the land I've been thinking about, and I think a few other councils are supportive of it broadly, is just north of Allendale Road, and it's land that's bounded by the Diamond Creek and the railway line. It's a flat area. It's land that will have good soil because it's in the creek sort of flood zone. It's certainly one thing that the BMX riders look for when they're building their jumps, is to have that good soil that's next to the creek. So that's the location that's proposed moving forward to give these BMX riders somewhere to go. It's certainly a good location in terms of accessibility. It's halfway between Diamond Creek and Eltham. It's accessible, therefore, right along the Diamond Creek Trail, beyond Eltham and all the way up to Hurstbridge, and it also connects in with the Aqueduct Trail. So it's a centre of a compass that is north, south, east and west. What we're sort of proposing in discussion with officers, Yalmar and Heath, are working hard on this one, but it's a regional facility that perhaps might look a bit like a facility called Challenge Park in Albany, West Australia. That's certainly a first point of call for discussion in terms of looking at what's been done there. That facility has everything that other sports would have. So if you think about football or cricket or netball or basketball, the sort of things we want at this regional BMX facility are lights. So it can be used after dark, particularly during winter when it gets dark at 6 o'clock. Sort of power more generally, water, toilets, barbecue facilities, shelter. It might have a number of features like the one in Albany at Challenge Park, which is a pump track, for the smallest of kids who are using scooters and perhaps on their bikes for the first time. The next stage is smaller jumps, another circuit with bigger jumps, and finally the jumps of the like that we often see in Nillumbik that are built by the youth and some people who are perhaps young at heart, but certainly well beyond young people in terms of being in their mid-20s, the larger jumps. But it's an opportunity for kids to sort of work through that progression. It might take them some years before they can go to these bigger jumps, but that's certainly what we're looking at. Hopefully, now that we know that BMX is an Olympic sport, it will hopefully give the Nillumbik youth a pathway to this sport being treated as a formalised activity. So we want to see competitions, want to see races, we want to see the sort of things that used to happen in Nillumbik when I was a kid. 40 years ago, and I haven't seen a BMX track. You know, there is a small BMX track which is not well frequented behind the Eltham Community Reception Centre. So look, hopefully this bounces the ball for a regional BMX facility. It's in the council plan. We want to get it going. We know that we're going to have issues into the future of BMX jumps on council land. Broadly, what I'd like to do is if those jumps are going to be removed into the future, a report is brought to council, and council can actually own the decision and then be able to say to the public, well, these are the risks. This is why we took the action that we did, rather than it being done clandestine like the Vic Track did recently in Diamond Creek. So thank you. I'm out of time.
You are out of time. Thank you. Councillor Duffy, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to support the words of Councillor Perkins, but before saying what I'd like to say about this, I'd like to commend the very positive involvement of two of our youth council, Joey and Taj, in helping work with council and the members of the BMX jump community with, I suppose, managing the fallout of what's just happened. Last weekend I was really upset. I was quite angry when I found out that the jumps had been demolished. I was angry because I hadn't been told. I didn't know, and I'm not a jumps person. And so I can just imagine how the community that use that facility, they've built, with their blood, sweat and tears for 30 years felt, because we've just talked about placemaking and the importance of owning your place, and they've built this place. So I felt for them, and I saw the outpouring of, frustration by the community through Facebook, and, I'm really glad that we've come to this space just a week later to say that we want to act on this. Back at Eltham North, just behind the Adventure Playground, there were some free jumps like this as well, and they were demolished. And I thought, I couldn't understand why council would do that. We've also talked tonight about audit and risk, and we've had a report put forward too as well. So there are two sides for us to consider here. One is the importance of recreational spaces for kids and adults and our community. And one of the things that I noticed in going down to the area on the weekend, I went there on Monday of last week to go and have a look for myself at what had happened. I was aware of the jumps that were underneath the railway line that you could access, and I was amazed at the ingenuity of what's been built there over time. But I wasn't aware of the other jumps that are just a little bit further up that you actually access by walking across the railway line, which is actually a bridge over the Diamond Creek. It really concerned me to see on Monday afternoon young children, primary school age children, using this for their afternoon activity. So from that perspective, I think we really need to address the safety issues that are related to these jumps, because we can't have the horrible situation of a child dodging a train. And I saw that. I saw a young boy push his bike across the train track over the bridge, and within a minute a train came from the Diamond Creek side. Within minutes I saw a couple of girls follow on the same path, pushing their bikes with their helmets, and a train come from the Eltham side. Where do they go? Do they jump off and land in the creek? We can't close our eyes and pretend that we don't know that this is there. So that's where, from council, the responsible thing for us to do is to work with the community to come up with an alternative, something that works. So I really would like to thank you again, Councillor Perkins, for putting this on the table, and the location that you're suggesting has many merits, just there on Allendale Road. And one of the things that we haven't talked about is the access for emergency vehicles and the access for ambulances when that's needed. So
thank you.
I'll wrap up at that and say Olympic sports. Who knows? In Olympic, we could have a champion at the Brisbane Olympics, seeing as this year was when aerial BMX started.
Thank you, Councillor Duffy. Would any other councillor like to speak? Councillor Rabtran.
Yes, look, I was very upset when those jumps were demolished, and I'm really sorry to all the BMX riders out there that this is the situation we have at the moment. And there are reasons for it, but it sucks. I'm a cyclist. I'm not a BMX rider. I don't have the bravery to do that, unfortunately. It looks like great fun, but it's not something I'd be able to do myself. But, you know, if people told me that I wasn't allowed to ride on the roads anymore, or tried to stop me from riding on the roads, I'd certainly be up in arms, and I'm sure there'd be plenty of other people up in arms as well. And that's what happens when you try to stop people from doing something that they love. We have a really tricky situation here where people want to be able to build their own tracks. Young people want to be able to go out, dig up some dirt, build a track that, you know, and have their own autonomy in how the track looks, how it works, how it operates, how steep it is, what sort of dirt do they use. I don't really understand how it all works, but I know what they want to be able to do. And we have the situation where technically it's illegal to do that, and there are a whole range of issues, from safety to public amenity to the environment, where that sort of thing can't be appropriate in all areas. We also have to work with our insurance and that the potential liability if someone were to be hurt on our land. That's why these tracks are being torn down. I'm really looking forward to working on our open space strategy next year and being able to put together an unstructured sports strategy where we can find a way of facilitating these tracks. It might not be everything everybody wants, but to get more BMX tracks in more places around the Shire, and to help people find sites that are appropriate, where it's not going to harm the environment, where it's not going to damage the amenity for nearby residents, and to find ways of working with our insurers so that we can cope with that liability. I don't think we'll be able to give everybody everything they want. It might not be a case of letting people completely build the tracks themselves. I don't know how our insurers would feel about that. I certainly want it to be that way, but we might have to negotiate on that point. What we've got here in this motion is a really good step in the right direction in setting up a BMX facility, potentially by Allendale Road. We'll see where it ends up. Getting some community consultation on what people want that to look like, and having a really positive outcome from the community out of this really distressing situation. I don't know if it'll be enough to replace what was taken. I don't think we can ever replace what was taken, but what we're doing is we're giving people somewhere to do something that they love, and hopefully there'll be many, many more opportunities to do just this as we work on the open space strategy, so we can do it in many more geographical areas around the Shire. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ramcharan. Would anyone else like to speak to the motion? No. I might just sum up very quickly by saying that I also was upset when I heard that the tracks and jumps were demolished because there was so much investment and passion and commitment from the community, and obviously many years of fun at that location. However, I'm looking forward to working with community and hearing what community wants in the new location as well, assuming this is the right location. I'm also hopeful that this might help with advocacy that Councillor Duffy and I are working on with the train crossing at Allendale Road, as this is a very close location, with making that train crossing safe for pedestrian and cyclists. So I'm excited with where we're going with this. So I'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? Carried unanimously. Okay, I'll move on to item 14, delegate reports. There is no delegate reports. I'll keep moving. Supplementary and urgent business. There's no supplementary or urgent business. There's also no confidential reports. So I will now thank everyone for your attendance virtually and in person, particularly those CFA officers that were here. And I'll now declare the meeting closed at 8:52 p.m. So thank you.
Congratulations, Mayor Ayer.
Thank you, my first meeting. So thank you very much.